We want to welcome Ralph Davis to the Corvair Convention. Ralph, please stand up. I want to introduce you to Larry Rollo. Larry Rollo is the president of the Corvair Society of America. And on your other side is Terry Jensen. He is our executive secretary. We're pleased to have you come to the convention. We've never had this kind of news media coverage. We're trying in the Washington area to figure out how to get coverage, and you solved our problem for us. A little background on this. We had some members in Wisconsin go to a presentation that Ralph Nader gave, and a couple of those members talked to Ralph Nader afterwards, said to Ralph Nader that the convention's going to be in your backyard next year. Would you be interested in coming? We can't officially invite you, but I'm sure that if we welcome you, I can give you the name or we can get you in contact with them. And our only problem is that we can't afford to pay you. Ralph Nader graciously said, I would be pleased to come. And we've been working on this for the past few months, and we finally got our acts together and who was doing what at what time, and it was determined that this would be the time. Ralph is here to do a talk on auto safety. We'll talk for a half hour or so, and then we're open up to questions and answers. Ralph, could you step up here? We're trying to steal the show from you. I'd like to present you with a official Corvair Society of America 21st anniversary T-shirt for our convention. You missed the comment. The comment was he would not dare wear it. We know you do not have a Corvair. We have here $1 off. It's a Nader box. For you, this is for the Corvair Underground, and you can use that to purchase any Corvair parts you would like. Over the years, we've had a lot of fun with Ralph Nader and Corvair. There's a lot of humor there. And you're seeing part of it here. I'm very pleased to present Ralph Nader for our society.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you also for the invitation. Right off, I want to trade this in for an empty stabilizer bar. One thing I want to point out at the outset is I understand the value of Corvairs has gone up very precipitously and will continue to go up, particularly some Corvair models. And as the value goes up, we should remember the contributions of the Corvair in many directions. very bad, and some not so bad. And so I just want to start by talking briefly about the choice of the Corvair in my book on Safe and Speed, which is this is the original. Originally, it was $5.95. No point. And this was the '72 update, which dealt with the progress under the law. And then this is the one that just came out, the 25th anniversary. Now, a lot of times this book is described as a book that exposed the Corvair, since the entire book was on the Corvair. The entire book was not on the Corvair, as many of you know. It was just on the first chapter. And I've been asked from time to time, why did I choose the Corvair to focus on? Well, it wasn't because I wanted to advance the sense of community in the United States, and I anticipated the Corvair Society of America. It was that it represented some very important themes that I wanted to make. It was a newly designed car, as we all know, and it was viewed as an innovative car by Ed Cole and others who worked on it. And in my judgment, it had the least reason not to be in the vanguard of safety, just because it was a newly designed car. So that was an important point right there, because I was quite concerned about the technological stagnation of the auto industry. At that time, something did not escape the notice of some people in Japan and Germany, who began to think that they had a market opportunity here because Detroit was emphasizing safe style over safety and was selling stylistic pornography over engineering integrity. And that, of course, spelled a lot of problems for American motorists in many cars. Fuel inefficiency, rust problems, lack of durability, and the foreign car companies, of course, began to move in on the market, especially in the area of quality control. So that was one point. The second was that the designs of the Corvair that I found inadequate were in three areas. One was an area that prevented accidents, the second prevented the injury, and the third reduced the toxicity. And what I'm referring to, of course, is the simple swing axle problem in terms of the stability of the car. The second was the rearward displacement inclination of the steering assembly. It was a uniquely designed point there in terms of the vulnerability. The steering column started about 2 inches from the leading surface of the front tires for many of these models, and in a front-type collision would be quite inclined to ram right back into the driver. And the third was the heater exchange design problem, which propelled carbon monoxide, odorless, can't see it, smell it, taste it, or touch it, into the passenger compartment. So it had all three. It also had a lot more information about the car's safety or lack thereof than other car models. In those days, it was very difficult, as many of you know, to get any information about how cars performed on the highway. You'd read the Auto Buff magazines, but they were otherwise inclined to favor the auto companies. They got a lot of their designs, long cars, etc., from the companies. They didn't like to give people the bad news very often. When they did it in euphemisms that were quite creative, I might say. So at that time, the media would never even talk about a car model in terms of its name. In the first TV reports on the Corvair, the reporter said, a medium-sized rear-engine American car. You wouldn't even want to say Corvair, because that was an advertising taboo then. This car was in litigation. It had depositions, it had admissions by GM engineers and officials, and there was a lot of material on it in popular technical literature about its handling, etc. So that's another reason why it was chosen. There were a number of police reports on accidents that zeroed in on eyewitness accounts on what happened. And to top it off, it was produced by GM. And that was important because I didn't want anybody to say, oh, well, this car model it shows was just a small manufacturer in France, produced the Renault Dauphine, and that's you can't say that that's very representative of the attitude or lack of engineering safety capability of the industry. Now, having said that, the case on the Corvair's instability, etc., was not complete. It kept pouring out in one fashion or another, 1968, 9, 70, except long after the Corvair was phased out. I might say, in part by the competition, Mustang and GM itself found its dealers didn't like the car. They thought it was pretty, but they thought it was a headache. And GM itself was preparing to substitute other models for it. So there are a lot of factors involved. But listen to a private letter that was sent to GM executive Tom Murphy by DeLorean long before he had his problems. He was on the way to becoming, in most people's eyes, vice president of General Motors. And he wrote a letter to Tom Murphy, a very private letter, which was about 1971 or so. And in the letter he said, quote, "The swing axle Corvair was put into production." By the way, for those of you who don't know DeLorean's career, he was head of Chevrolet and a real fast, upcoming executive, had the sales touch and the engineering touch that marked him as a real comer in the hierarchy. Quote, "The swing axle Corvair was put into production despite the strongest, most vocal plea against it by the engineering staff experts on vehicle handling and suspension. Von Paul-Hemus and Max Ruet, head and assistant head of GM suspension development, both protested that the proposed swing axle was unsafe, and they made elaborate functional models to demonstrate how the rear suspension would jack and the car flip over. Mr. Knudsen told me that as the Chevrolet general manager, he had to threaten to quit before the corporation would approve replacing the dangerous swing axle with a slightly more expensive, safer design in 1965. All of this data was removed from the files prior to Corvair litigation. In my opinion, if you must destroy a file because the contents are embarrassing, you're not acting responsibly as a public corporation. I don't think the last has been heard of Corvair handling. Much more time-consuming and expensive litigation is in the offing." The same was true of the Corvair heater. Many people, Chuck Hughes for one, objected violently to a direct engine air heater without an intermediate safety shield. Because it's well known that all engine gaskets and exhaust systems will deteriorate and leak in time, so that the car would eventually, inevitably, become a carbon monoxide death trap. There is no telling how many people have been injured or killed by these deadly fumes, either dulling their reflexes so that their safe driving ability was impaired, or actually causing a monoxide inhalation death. This would have been avoided with a sense of responsibility and concern for our public. Certainly, we were forewarned by many of our engineers. Once again, we can expect much more expensive litigation, so that the few cents the shield might have cost will be insignificant. And that was the end of his career, that letter.